Everyone has their own perception of truth. Sadly, when dealing with a narcissist, your truth can become very blurry. When you are experiencing narcissistic abuse, you could get in an unhealthy state of being more and more confused and anxious. You could slowly disconnect from your own thoughts, feelings, intuition and truth. If this is happening, it's essential to recognize what is going on. A narcissist can act normally while showing manipulative and disturbing behavior, and they can respond abnormally when you show normal, healthy behavior, such as setting a boundary. This ongoing discrepancy creates anxiety and confusion. Clearly, these manipulations are very brutal and unhealthy. I will go into cognitive dissonance in the context of an abusive relationship caused by narcissistic abuse. I will go into depth as I think cognitive dissonance is an important aspect in order to understand narcissistic abuse and how to possibly deal with it. I hope my videos will be helpful to you. First, in this video I will go into what is cognitive dissonance and some examples of narcissistic behavior causing cognitive dissonance. In the following videos I will explore the truth of a narcissist and how their manipulative behavior and truth perception can result in experiencing cognitive dissonance. Then I will discuss defense mechanisms victims might use to reduce the discomfort of cognitive dissonance and explore how the mind can sabotage or postpone the decision to go no contact. Lastly, I will discuss how to possibly deal with all of this and how to try to counterbalance its effects. So, what is cognitive dissonance in short? The word cognitive has to do with the mind, the mental processes such as thinking, knowing, remembering, judging and problem solving, and the word dissonance is about a lack of harmony or inconsistency between things. Cognitive dissonance occurs when actions and beliefs or ideas are not consistent with each other according to your own mind. This inconsistency results in discomfort or stress, and mostly a person will try to fix this inconsistency in some way. Naturally, a person doesn't like the discomfort of conflicting thoughts and therefore has a motivation to fix this inconsistency. This can be done in two basic ways. On the one hand, the belief or idea could be adjusted to make it consistent with the action, and on the other hand, the action could be avoided to avoid the discomfort to occur. In general, cognitive dissonance is acceptable when the discomfort is acceptable for living. Cognitive dissonance is quite common in life and we use it to develop our beliefs and make decisions. It doesn't necessarily interfere with functioning, and it's normal to sometimes experience it to some degree. It's how you make decisions, learn and develop your beliefs and wisdom. A simple example of reducing cognitive dissonance is the following, where the belief is eating apple pie is unhealthy and the action is eating apple pie. When you eat the apple pie, you will know it's unhealthy, and if you are aware of this, it will bring a certain discomfort. There are a few ways to reduce this discomfort. The first is to change the behavior and simply stop eating the apple pie. The second is justifying the behavior by changing the conflicting belief. You could say to yourself you're allowed to eat one piece of pie every week, or that you had a bad day and you earned this. The third way is to justify the behavior by adding other compensating behavior, such as saying to yourself you will go exercise later that day to burn the calories. And the fourth way is to fully ignore your discomfort or deny conflicting information with the belief. You could say the pie is healthy because it contains apples, and there is not even whipped cream on it. So, to conclude in simple terms, cognitive dissonance is the discomfort and anxiety someone experiences when internally dealing with two conflicting ideas at the same time. It's a feeling of discomfort resulting from having beliefs or values that don't match with your behavior. People like to remove this discomfort by changing beliefs or their actions. Sadly, a narcissist loves to use or abuse the wish of the victim to remove the discomfort following from cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a very logical consequence when having a relationship or closer interaction with a narcissist. A narcissist switches between idealization and devaluing or discarding, and these stages of the narcissistic abuse cycle aren't consistent with each other. A narcissist's created identity is not consistent with their manipulative behavior. You can learn more about the narcissistic abuse cycle in my video going deeper into the stages of the cycle. Now, in a relationship, the victim has to believe they are in love and they have a real connection. As the foundation of a relationship is trust, the normal basic belief is that this person is a good person and you can trust them. These beliefs, however, don't match all the stealthy or brutal behavior such as gaslighting, blaming, raging and silent treatments. The result is anxiety and discomfort because of this cognitive dissonance. I will now go into a few examples of narcissistic behavior causing cognitive dissonance. A narcissist can show many different kinds of manipulative behavior, and these behaviors can create a lot of doubts and confusion to a victim. I will go into a few types of behavior that really play with the truth and the victim's sense of reality. Some behavior is more aggressive, such as blaming and raging, whereas other behavior can be very stealthy, such as gaslighting. The first example is a narcissist using endless monologues without a clue. A narcissist can go into endless monologues with some disturbing or strange statements packed within them and make sure there is no space to interfere on these things. Afterwards, it feels you can't respond to what has been said earlier and you need time to process and decode what they are saying. You could be left tired and wondering what this person exactly said or meant. It's hard to remember and it aims to create a blur and chaos. The second example is mirroring. A narcissist has the skill to mirror any situation or conversation. They can turn anything around on you. You suddenly become the one to blame and you start doubting yourself. A narcissist will not take any accountability or responsibility for their behavior and thus needs to project it back onto you. When you start to believe they're mirroring or turning things around, your mind is trying to reduce the discomfort of this cognitive dissonance. How could a person that loves me lie to me or manipulate me in this way? The third example is gaslighting, which is a very stealthy way of basically trying to make you insane and question your perception of truth. It's a brutal form of manipulation in order to make you doubt your own thoughts and perception of reality. It will make you slowly disconnect from yourself. It's ongoing manipulation and brainwashing to cause the victim to have increasing self-doubts and eventually have them lose their own sense of perception, identity and self-worth. Some examples of what could be repeatedly said are, "You are just crazy, that never happened." "Are you sure about that? Your memory isn't always that great." And, "It's all in your head, it's like you're making things up randomly." Now, the narcissist will lie with full certainty, deny with conviction, demand proof in arguments, use tricks to confuse you and more. It's an example of behavior that specifically aims to make you insane and confused. You can learn more about gaslighting in my video about this behavior. I recommend watching that as well if you want to learn more about the specifics. The fourth example is devaluing behavior. There is a variety of devaluing behavior a narcissist can show. This could be guilt blaming, raging, or using the silent treatment. You can learn more about the silent treatment in my video about this. All of these devaluing actions create cognitive dissonance because it doesn't match with the idealization and love bombing of a narcissist. The conflicting thought is, how can someone that loves you act in this way and hurt you like this? The last example is outside pressure, which can be very strong. In my article about the web of control of a narcissist, I explain how a narcissist could create a web of people under their control and use manipulation strategies to do so. Narcissists can seem very kind, charming and good people. They can be loved in a community, and your family could even talk about how great they are or how lucky you are to have them. It fuels the cognitive dissonance as your belief is not equal to the belief of others. You could feel outside pressure to make the relationship or marriage work. So, the above examples show how a lot of manipulative behavior used by narcissists can create cognitive dissonance. This video shortly introduced what is cognitive dissonance and a few examples of narcissistic behavior causing it. In the following video I will go deeper into the narcissist's mind and their truth first, before going deeper into cognitive dissonance in abusive relationships. I will now further try to explore the mind of a narcissist in order to explain why a narcissist has an unfair advantage when it comes to playing a game of truth. This all follows from my own experience combined with my research on narcissism. I grew up in a family with a narcissistic father and empathic mother, and I have observed a lot as a young child. Now, I hope I can help others from this experience. I'm aware there's a large variety of types of narcissists, and this video is a generalized attempt mainly to explain why it's very logical victims start doubting themselves and their truth. It's not a rational or conscious choice to be abused, and you can't blame a victim for being manipulated into staying. Therefore, it's necessary to be able to recognize narcissistic behavior and certain dynamics of the mind. Everyone has their own truth resulting from their own thoughts and beliefs. You are what you think. What a person fully believes can become the truth for them. A narcissist seems to fully believe in their truth. The truth to them is their created identity of being superior. The narcissist could believe their identity created by ego is an authentic soul. It means there is emptiness or hidden pain beneath it all, but it will never be reached. It seems like the dynamic of the narcissistic mind revolves around the following things. The first is having an unending need for validation, appreciation and ego boosting. This need grows continuously when being fulfilled, and therefore the needs will never be fulfilled as a whole. It's like trying to fill a bottle with water, but the bottle doesn't have a bottom. The second is feeling no empathy, which results in a form of emptiness. They can't imagine how someone could feel because they don't know. They also can't choose to feel or emphasize, and thus only could learn it theoretically and by observing others. The third dynamic is the need for so-called narcissistic supply. They choose their actions consciously or unconsciously to get narcissistic supply, which follows from their unending needs. This supply feeds their ego and confirms their view of the world. The fourth dynamic is a vicious circle of confirmation and ego boosting. A narcissist only takes responsibility for good things and doesn't take responsibility for bad things, but will blame others for these. They essentially have a mind that doesn't question themselves, but seeks outside reasons for bad things. If you never take responsibility or apologize, you will not learn to grow spiritually. Their self-worth can only increase by taking responsibility for merely the good things, and by doing this, they keep confirming their superiority. In a way, they create their own positive vicious circle of confirmation and ego boosting. When this happens and you recognize it, this clearly confirms that everyone has their own truth. The fifth dynamic is having no true self-reflection, the blind spot of a narcissist seems to be the lack of critical self-reflection on a deeper level, and this creates certainty. They don't have to doubt themselves. It seems they have no control over this blind spot. The sixth dynamic is that a narcissist basically could embrace who they are. Narcissists can be aware of being narcissistic or having a narcissistic reputation. When a narcissist knows this about themselves, it doesn't really change anything, because mostly they don't want to change. A narcissist doesn't care about your feelings and can't compare to their own feelings. Why would you care if you don't feel shame, a sense of responsibility for what your behavior might cause, and when you're not slowed down by guilt? Again, this is a very generalized attempt to explain some dynamics of the narcissistic mind. The end result of it all is important, which is this narcissistic mind is a created identity that is very certain and confident. It has an unhealthy belief in own superiority and truth. This creates an unfair advantage when their truth conflicts with the truth of a victim, who obviously doesn't have the same amount of certainty but has self-doubts and a critical inner voice. A narcissist abuses this unfair advantage consciously or uses it unconsciously. Their behavior demands that the victim also has a certainty of their truth. A victim needs to acknowledge the relationship is unhealthy in order to be able to leave. This requires a very strong trust in their own truth and intuition. Now, I will go deeper into cognitive dissonance in abusive relationships. We explored how the mind can work to reduce the discomfort of cognitive dissonance and, for example, rationalize things away. We also explored why truth can become blurry because of the dynamic of narcissists having full certainty about their truth and healthy human beings having doubts. Now, I will go deeper into how the mind of a victim of narcissistic abuse can respond to the discomfort of cognitive dissonance. I'll use an example with fictional names to explore this. Maria, who is the victim, tries to confront Paul, who is the narcissist, about seeing sexual messages from him to another woman. The belief of Maria is that Paul is a good man and the action is him cheating on her. She can choose many ways to respond to this situation. The first is Maria instantly changes her view of Paul and realizes he is not who she thought. She will end the relationship. In her belief, someone that loves her can't do something like that, and therefore she needs to end the relationship. This response shows clear boundaries and certainty in what she saw. The second is Maria still believes Paul is a good man and he didn't mean to do this. He must be sorry. It was a one-time thing and they will work on it together. Paul convinces her it didn't mean anything and it's not important. I have to mention this way of dealing with the situation could still be a normal boundary if Maria chooses this consciously or something that also could happen in relationships without narcissistic manipulation. The next ways, however, show a clear unhealthy or unequal dynamic in the relationship. The third way is Maria blames herself for not being good enough and understands Paul had to seek love somewhere else. She will try to improve herself in order to keep Paul happy. He won't do it again if she will take better care of him in the future. The fourth way is Maria chooses to believe Paul's attempts to convince her it's simply not true what she saw, which is his attempt of gaslighting. She misunderstood the text or imagined it. Paul says she does that more often because of her jealousy. The fifth way is Maria denies to herself she saw the messages and doesn't even bring it up to Paul. It just can't be true and she must be mistaken. Paul will be mad or use silent treatment and she doesn't want to disturb the good thing they have right now. Now, this example shows that a situation can play out in many ways and there could be more possibilities than the above. There are many ways to rationalize or change beliefs or ideas. In this example, only the first reaction will not lead to cognitive dissonance, whereas the other responses are ways to reduce the discomfort of cognitive dissonance. What happens will be very dependent on the level of narcissistic abuse in the relationship. Paul could have been devaluing and gaslighting Maria for a long time, which could result in reactions 3, 4, or 5. The disturbing thing is that a lot of victims can't believe their loved one is a narcissist showing brutal and twisted manipulative behavior. The tendency then will be to find other solutions to reduce the discomfort following from cognitive dissonance. If you can't believe the truth about narcissistic abuse, you will be stuck in changing other beliefs, the truth or denial. Maria could, for example, have the following defense mechanisms if she decides to stay with Paul. The first is Maria could accept Paul shows unhealthy behavior, but also believe he is still a good man as well. She will separate the narcissistic part from the good behavior, which is the loving Paul. In that way, she can accept staying in the relationship. The second is Maria could accept she will not find love with a deeper connection and settles for Paul. He does provide good income, and she convinces herself she has some freedom. It's sacrificing freedom and the possibility of having real love that could be caused by fear or low self-worth. The third is Maria believes in all relationships there will be lows, and this is just the tough part. A lot of relationships have trouble, and a lot of people have cheated on their partner. She convinces herself this is the same, and convinces herself Paul is really sorry, even though he might not say it himself. To conclude this video, a victim of a narcissist could live with an incredible amount of discomfort caused by cognitive dissonance. When you are an outsider to the victim, you can observe the mind of the victim arguing a lot away. It's a form of survival and a requirement for the victim to keep functioning. In the next video, I will go deeper into defense mechanisms and explore them. In this video, I will first go into my own experience, and then how it translates into more generalized defense mechanisms. I hope by sharing I can help others in recognizing manipulative behavior as a starting point to become more in control of how to deal with it, and more importantly, your own mind, thoughts, behavior and intuition. I hope these videos can be helpful to you. Experiencing a narcissistic father and unhealthy family dynamics for years as a young child, I became very disconnected from my own feelings and body in my youth. It's quite hard to describe or explain the energy at the house when my father was around. It was very uncomfortable, tense and a bit frightening. Nobody could be themselves. It's an experience close to walking on eggshells, being anxious, a continuous feeling you can't be yourself, and a feeling you want to hide, run, and be invisible. My father shows great discrepancy between his words and his actions. Luckily for myself, I learned very soon his actions didn't match his words, and I needed to look at his actions and not believe the words. I suppose this helped me a lot in seeing what was going on. My father could be very kind and charming and seems a great, successful, smart and confident man to the outside world. Sadly, he basically had 2 families and got away with it, and with a lot of disturbing and manipulative behavior, even though we all knew. He used all textbook narcissistic behavior and manipulations to do so. In the later years, he kept developing his more stealthy manipulative games and reduced his obvious devaluing behaviors. He knew he had to adjust his manipulations to keep my mother under his control, and he did this successfully. In order to survive as a child, I learned to become invisible and recognize all the behavioral patterns. During the years, I listened to and observed my mother's thoughts, feelings, confusion, and saw how she always managed to convince herself she had some reason to stay. It left her in an unhealthy state of unending anxiety and confusion. Obviously, this is personal to me, and I would now like to go into my mother's defense mechanisms, even though it feels somewhat uncomfortable. No, these are my observations and thus subjective. I suppose, in the end, it's only my truth. My motivation to share is that it might help others in seeing how the mind of a victim can work. These are the most used examples of my mother's defense mechanisms or reasons to stay. The first is holding on to her lifestyle she was used to. She lives in her dream house with a large garden and beautiful nature around the house. It seems she doesn't want to sacrifice their current lifestyle and become dependent on others for help. The second is seeing a dark scenario after leaving. She is scared she won't find a job and will need the help of others financially. She doesn't want to live in a small flat without a garden. Even when she is offered help, she doesn't want to accept the help. Third is convincing herself to stay. She convinces herself she has some power or control in the relationship and a form of freedom to do what she wants. Also, she convinced herself from time to time it could be her path to change or help him. At the same time, she recognizes she can't change him. The fourth is denial. She separates the narcissist from the good man he also can be. He helps people at his work. He does good things and can be friendly to her. She would prefer not knowing or denying the dark side. It's almost like she regrets she knows there is another family he supports and manipulates. The fifth is shame. She blames herself for not leaving a long time ago. She thought staying was the best for her children and didn't have the strength at the time to make the decision to leave. It feels like she made a commitment by staying at that time and she doesn't want to waste this commitment. She sometimes hopes he does something to make her decision easier or possibly make the decision for her. Why doesn't he just leave me and go live with this other woman and family? I don't understand what he wants. The sixth is feeling an emotional connection or trauma bond. Logically, there's an emotional connection. She recognizes the abuse, but the trauma bonding could be perceived as a form of love. She has empathy for my father's tough youth and his childhood wounds, and might think he still tries. They have been together for a long time and marriage is a commitment. My father still shows kindness and reduced his more obvious manipulative behaviors, which make her say it's not that bad and other marriages have problems as well. And lastly, there is passiveness. She always finds a reason to wait for a better time to leave. This could be the financial situation or when she has even more definitive proof. It seems an endless postponing of breaking up and fooling yourself into thinking you will do it eventually. Now, all these mechanisms and reasons seem to be helpful to cope with the painful situation. The decision of her behavior is fixed, which is not to leave him, and thus the mind creates all these ways to reduce the discomfort of cognitive dissonance. She emphasizes all the fears and risks of leaving. She needs all these thoughts and defense mechanisms to survive and keep functioning because of her decision to stay. The interesting thing about the mind is that you can always find reasons to stay and you can always find reasons to leave. This means finding reasons is not the problem. The mind can always support your action or behavior if you really want to. It's a deeper choice of what energy you want in your life, and you need to tune in with your feelings and intuition to make this decision. You also need to be able to take action based on this. Sadly, both of these things are very challenging when dealing with narcissistic abuse. Now, we can summarize the above examples into a couple of general defense mechanisms victims can use to survive their abusive relationship and stay in the situation. The first is rationalization. Your intuition tells you something is wrong, but the toxic behavior is rationalized. This person loves you, doesn't mean it this way, or doesn't purposely want to hurt you. The victim decides to stay and see it through to the bitter end. The second is denial. It's too painful to recognize and acknowledge the truth of this person you love that is manipulating and abusing you. Your mind will deny it with force. It can be a defense mechanism in order to cope with the painful truth someone knows within. The victim knows it's not right or the situation is unhealthy, but could deny this and convince themselves that the abuser cares and loves them. There can be a lot of shame involved in not wanting to acknowledge the truth. The third is justification. The victim tries to justify and explain to themselves why they need to stay in the relationship and why that's okay. The victim tries to convince themselves that staying is the best choice for now. It might be that the victim thinks they should help the narcissist, they made a commitment, or they sympathize with the suffering of the narcissist in childhood. In abusive relationships, the victim is motivated to make the relationship work. This is why they might justify the behavior or make abusive behavior smaller. A victim could choose to believe the abuse is an exception, because it doesn't match the person they fell in love with during the idealization phase. The fourth is helplessness. The victim could push away responsibility for themselves, become helpless and fully dependent on the abuser. This is a form of survival where the victim instinctively bonds with a powerful force in a frightening world. The abuser could be protected and defended by the victim when people try to rescue or encourage the victim to leave their abuser. It might result in a trauma bond or Stockholm syndrome with the abuser. There could be underlying fear for what the abuser might do. Now, all of the above mechanisms are ways to comfort yourself and reduce the pain and discomfort as a result of cognitive dissonance. It's necessary protection in order to survive when there is commitment to the action or decision to stay in the relationship. Sadly, it's an unhealthy situation that has a lot of impact on your mind and self-worth. It's a use of force in and against your mind, as there is also a knowledge deep within. There will probably be a lot of self-doubts, as there is no clarity anymore. Your sense of reality could be impacted and you might not trust your own intuition anymore. The commitment to the mind and the truth of the abuser means there is no space for your own needs and emotions. The relationship revolves around the narcissist and you will disconnect from yourself and possibly disconnect from your support system by withdrawing from those you love and isolating yourself. There always is a way out, however. It's within the power of action. Our beliefs and values change over time by growing up, learning and having experiences. Cognitive dissonance is about decision making. You can choose to decide to change behavior, change your belief, or choose to keep the discomfort. In a marriage or relationship, you always make efforts to make things work. You might support your spouse with rooting for a sports team you don't really care about. It's a different thing when you have to compromise your values or give things up, such as a job you love, or just your energy of being yourself. You need to decide whether the unnatural force you use in a relationship is worth it or not. It's not about whether someone is a narcissist or not, but it's really about behavior and whether the relationship is unhealthy or not. In my last video of this series, I will go deeper into possible actions to start taking small steps in the right direction and how to try to counterbalance the effects of cognitive dissonance. In this last video of my series going deeper into cognitive dissonance, I go into possible actions to counterbalance the negative effects on your mind caused by narcissistic abuse. This clearly is a very tough and painful process, and it's essential to start taking small steps in the right direction. To me, the right direction is having attention for your own energy, self-worth, feelings, and eventually shifting the attention from the narcissist to yourself. This can be done when you're still dealing with a narcissist or when already in a no-contact situation. I hope this video can be helpful to you. First, I would like to show my view underlying my website and YouTube channel. It could be seen as a step-by-step process, but doesn't necessarily have to be. It starts with the attention on the narcissist and their manipulative behavior in order to recognize what's going on, but the aim is to eventually shift your attention to yourself to work on self-worth and healthy boundaries that follow from that. Clearly, the best way to work on yourself is when you are in a no-contact situation. Going no contact is the only healthy solution when dealing with narcissistic abuse. In this series, however, we learned this decision can be difficult or seem impossible to make due to the mind trying to reduce the discomfort of cognitive dissonance. Now, a victim mostly knows deeper within they should get out of the unhealthy abusive situation, but this puts them in uncertainty and stress as well. Staying or leaving both result in emotional stress, and the decision could be made based on what seems the path of the least resistance, which is staying or not changing the situation. After deciding not to change the situation, the mind will work to justify this decision, as we've explored in earlier videos. A risk thus could be that going no contact is a decision with more uncertainty and seems more stressful than staying in a situation you already know. It requires a lot of courage and strength to make the decision to leave. Mostly, these decisions follow from self-confidence or clarity, but when being abused by a narcissist, this has been affected as well. It's a trap that makes it extremely difficult to break the cycle. You can learn more about the narcissistic abuse cycle in my video going deeper into this. The effect of a narcissist on your mind can still be very present for quite some time after going no contact. It can be a challenge to shift the attention to yourself again, as you could have grown into the dynamic of disconnecting with your own needs and feelings and mostly having attention for the narcissist. Validation and confirmation of the reality of the situation are needed to reduce cognitive dissonance. The aim is to be able to ask yourself the right questions and learn to trust your intuition. If you ask yourself better questions, you will get better answers and actions. So now, I will go into a few actions that could be helpful when trying to counterbalance the effects of cognitive dissonance caused by narcissistic abuse. An important first step is to gain knowledge about narcissism and the possible extent of their behavior. The well-known expression "knowledge is power" is very true when dealing with narcissists. You need to know what's going on and become aware of whether someone is manipulating you. If so, you need to realize this person is showing unhealthy, manipulative and immature behavior. To recognize this, it's important to ask yourself good questions. Examples are: does this person want me to develop myself and become more confident? And do I feel sincere attention and empathy when this person listens to me? In my video going into how to deal with hoovering, I go deeper into some questions that could help to understand if your relationship is healthy or not. When you become more informed and you ask yourself quality questions, you will be able to recognize behavioral patterns and analyze what's going on. This will strengthen your suspicions if you're dealing with a narcissist. You probably intuitively knew something was wrong already, but now it can become more clear what's really happening. In this phase, you probably will start a process of emotional detachment from the narcissist. It's important that the truth about the narcissist needs to be embraced. Getting knowledge about narcissism can help you in accepting you can't change this person. You will not get an apology, explanation, and they will not take any responsibility. You can't change the behavior of another person, and you're also not responsible for it. You can't heal them, only yourself. Now, this brings me to the importance of writing things down and, if possible, go into therapy. The aim is to acknowledge the situation and to support yourself in this process. You can document your findings for yourself and take the time you need in this process of analyzing and possibly accepting that someone is a narcissist. This can be a very painful process. The recovery of narcissistic abuse is a long and painful road. It's psychological abuse, and the impact of cognitive dissonance is severe. It results in confusion and anxiety when you have a view of this person that doesn't match their manipulative behavior. It's hard to understand and accept. Try to get comfortable with the feeling of discomfort. Be honest about the contradictions and about the behavior you see. Be uncomfortable by not using defense mechanisms and see things for what it is. Name the behavior that is not okay. Don't think of reasons or excuses why manipulative behavior would be okay. It's an important part of starting the road of healing and recovering. This acknowledgement is necessary to work on further growth. Now, as mentioned before, the only real solution to stop the abuse is to go no contact. Only this way you can really start recovering and become yourself again. You need to protect your energy and life. If you can't go no contact right away, I would advise watching my video about the Grey Rock method in order to start emotionally detaching from the narcissist. It might help in creating space for yourself. It's important to try to allow the contradictions of what happened. You are allowed to mourn the good things, the relationship you thought you had, the person you thought this person was. It's okay if you still love this person. Give yourself permission to work through this. Now, what can also be of significant help is practicing conscious breathing exercises or meditation. There are all kinds of breathing methods that are great for gathering thoughts and acknowledging your thoughts and feelings. I suggest to find one that suits you. This could also just be a simple exercise of breathing slowly in for 4 seconds and then breathing out 6 seconds for a few minutes. When you consciously take longer breaths out than you breathe in, this will tell your body to get out of the stress system. All sorts of breathing methods or exercises can help you with emotionally detaching from the narcissist as well. A form of mindfulness would be to allow the discomfort of the situation and see things how they are. It will help you with healing and growing. If you think conscious breathing or meditation could be helpful to you, I recommend reading some of my articles, which I will put in the description of this video. The fifth action is to try to consciously surround yourself as much as possible with kind, sincere and compassionate people that love you and respect you. The aim is to create a kind and compassionate environment. In healthy relationships, people will respect your boundaries. If you have such people in your environment, try to spend more time with them. Their energy will help your energy. And the other way around, try to reduce time spent with people that drain your energy. Now, when trying to create a kind and compassionate environment, this also extends to your own mind. Are you kind and compassionate towards yourself? When your own mind is hostile, it's hard to connect with your intuition. It's essential to learn to trust yourself and your intuition and to seek clarity again. It's time to work on yourself and reclaim control over your life and self-worth. In my article about self-worth, I share some tips on how to work on this. It's important trying not to blame yourself. It's not useful. To forgive yourself means giving up hope for a different past. We are now looking for actions you can take and are not interested in what our minds can make up in order to make yourself feel smaller. You can always find a reason to blame yourself if you want to, but at this point we want to find reasons why we should be kind, compassionate, and supportive to ourselves. It's essential to connect with yourself again. Have faith in the healing process. Know this is an important process and it can require a lot of time. Allow yourself this time. You could have been abused for a long period of time, and this clearly has consequences on your thought patterns and emotions. Try to be compassionate to yourself when healing. You will restore your energy and find yourself again. Any small step in the right direction is a great thing. It's worth it, and you are worth it. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I sincerely hope it can be helpful. I'm sorry if you experienced narcissistic abuse, and I wish you strength and more kindness in the future. You can subscribe to my channel if you want to stay updated on my activities.